Welcome everyone to our latest webinar. Let's go straight into it. Christine, can you teach us about stores?
Today's training session is your ordering of parts, extras, RFCs, and your consumables. That is what we're doing today. So we're going to go into our defaults and just go through our defaults and our quoting. We have a couple of extras. You can use your extra colors on your monitor. When you go into your monitor, I will show you, you will actually have colors that are coming up that can tell you very quickly about your extras that are actually happening, right? We've also got under your creditors, we actually have some more as to when you go in and create an extra, as to how you want to actually have it set up in your shop. When you create an extra, do you want it to actually automatically order the part and no authorization is actually needed? Do you need to say that paperwork has to actually be done? Are you waiting for external authorization to be done? All of that type of thing. You can choose how you actually want it to be set up. Right. The other thing that we actually have with our defaults as well is this one here, processing invoices when receiving. Is Dr. Smash has two different ways of actually receiving the parts that have been ordered. If you are, if your storeman has his own computer, you can get the storeman to do his own receiving. And then you actually have your creditors lady, because they will then take the invoices that they received for that day through to your creditors lady. Sorry, I always assume creditors is a lady, but it's not always the case, but sorry about that. Your creditors, you send it through to your creditors, and then they will actually process and just double check that they're happy that the storeman has put it in correctly. Or it could be a case where your storeman does not actually have their own computer. So you now want your creditors person to do the receiving and the processing at the same time so they don't have duplicate work. And that is what your processing invoices when receiving is actually all about. So if you tick that, that means one person does both the receiving and the processing at the same time. Unticked means that the storeman can do his side and then the creditors person can do their side. Right. Deny parts ordered after job closed. It's pretty self-explanatory. If the job is closed, you cannot order parts on it. Some people prefer that to be unticked, but in most cases, bosses like to know that if the job is closed, you cannot order parts. Right. So there's just little bits and pieces on here. Your RFCs, when we come through to that just now, duplication of RFC numbers. If you want a warning every time you use the same RFC number, you can get it to actually come up. If you have multiple RFC books, as in, you actually have 3 or 4 books actually lying around, and your RFC, your storeman, just grabs any book, writes up his RFC. So your numbers, for them to be able to match, you need to actually be able to manipulate your own RFC numbers. Otherwise, what will happen is Dr. Smash will automatically, you set your first RFC number, as in that one there, and it will now count from that number on. So if you click on multiple RFC books, it allows you to go in and change the RFC number to whatever your book number actually is. Right, okay, so let's do some ordering now. Right, so we now go back into our current job. There is our Borman that we actually did. I double click on Borman. And the first place that we're going to go to is our job space summary and purchasing. And here, written in red, are all those items that were in the part that had prices in the price column, that had figures actually in the price column. They also had the method of replace, alternate, or outside contract. So anybody that's going to give you an invoice has now come up onto this list. And we're now going to be wanting to place a order for it. Right, it tells us on the side here that red means it's not been ordered as yet. So to create an order, you just literally are going to click on create an order. Now, who actually should be placing these orders? Literally the person who picks up the phone and phones somebody at your supplier, and that person should have a computer in front of them so that they know what they are actually purchasing, and they can actually make the order at the same time. Right, so this is now a list of all my parts that need to be ordered. And you will see that the computer is actually already guessed as to where we are going to be buying these parts from. Dr. Smash is slightly intuitive, as in, as you start purchasing for all your Hondas, it starts learning who your Honda preferred suppliers actually are. And that is what has actually come up here. There's our alternate part, so it knows that we prefer to buy those from Capricorn. Right, so what are we actually going to order? We're going to order all of our normal parts. I can either drag it down the item, so you click on it and actually drag it down to the bottom, or I can select the selected item, whatever is highlighted, or I can actually double click on the part and it will throw it down to the bottom. I'm only placing at the bottom here what is required for one supplier, because this is my one order I am actually making from one supplier. I click on our make the order to be supplied by. If in this particular case I don't want to order it from Honda Pinetown, I can go to my lookup and find who it is that are actually wanting to order it from. I'm just going to choose anybody. Hartman. Sounds good. Right. I can also go to my order taken by. And if I have staff names of who works at Harman, the names will actually come up here so that I can choose who it is. Yes, thank you very much. Sorry, getting screens popping up and I'm again, sorry. Right, so if I can go to queries, I go to my suppliers. This is how you add on the staff of Harman. You go to Harman, you edit your supplier, right? And I go to staff of this supplier, and I go to my add button, and I can now put in Sean. If any other details that I have, I can put that in for him. Click on OK, close, close, close. Right, I'm back at my order. So now if I go to my lookup, Sean is actually on that list and I can now say select. Right, I have now spoken to Sean at Harman. I'm happy with this. I can print the order if I want, and I can print it with prices coming through, with net prices or with no prices. But where does Dr. Smash get these prices from? Your quoted is obviously what you quoted. So therefore that makes it into your retail. And then it takes off, your default says that you should have 25%. So it takes off the 25%, And so therefore, that is what your ordered net should be. And that is where it's getting those figures from. It's because it's looking at your default. You were told you were allowed to 25, so that's what it's actually done. If under your suppliers, when you added on your suppliers, you put in, sorry, I'm just going to go back to Harmon again. Right, let's edit our supplier. Right, company name, addresses, phone numbers, that's all self-explanatory, but this one here, discount supplier details. Right, account number, normal discount percentage received. This is 0, so the computer is now going to take our default of 25%. But if it was they only offer you 17%, you type in 17% here, and what will happen is because there is a figure in here, the computer will now change your net to actually only being 17%. Right, your normal terms, cash means that you're paying them on the spot. They are not a 30-day account, so they won't come up onto your creditors. If they were a creditor, you just go to your 30 days and change them into 30 days. Your settlement discount, do you get settlement discount with it? Yes, you do. You get 2.5%, and that is only if you pay within 30 days. Right, so that is where our discounts and things like that actually come through from, but that is all under creditors. I will be going through that again when I do the creditors training. Right, okay, so because I have changed the figures after I have actually done this order, it has not changed this, it has kept it at our 25% that we have done. So I'm now wanting to print our order. So I'm going to say print with no values, and I say commit. Right, and it has now got no values actually in it, but it has now given them the list of what they need. It gives them a chassis number. Here you can actually have your icons and things like that actually coming up. It tells you that it was for Sean. So all the information is actually on here that they require. And you can do it as a PDF, which means that you can email your order straight from the Dr. Smash program. Right, so let's print that. Right, sorry, it's making it into a PDF for us. Right. What has happened now is all those parts have actually disappeared because I cannot order them twice. So the only two things I have left to actually place an order for are these two here. Right, and so if I close this window now, you will see that my items have turned yellow because they have been ordered but not yet received at this point. Right, okay, so just to run through an order again, I'm going to go into create an order. I'm going to do my fender, make my order. Automatically came up with Capricorn parts, look to see if there's a staff member. Yes, there is. So we choose who we're actually speaking to on the phone. I'm not going to print the order this time, but you permit the order, and the order has now been made. So it's actually quite quick and simple to actually make your orders if you want to. Right. We have got other buttons on the side here. Set to not required, and you can split items and things like that as well. The splitting of your items are things like your left front door. I should have left one of my items for me to do it. Okay, I will do an extra as a left front door. Right, so let's go to extras and how to actually do extras. And then I will show you how to do the split items and things like that so that I can go through some of these buttons that are actually on the side here as well. Right. Okay, so everything is in yellow because it has been ordered but not yet received. Creating of extras is your gentlemen have actually now been stripping the car and they have noticed that our left front door, in our case, the right front door or the left rear door has actually now got a problem actually on it, and we need a new left rear door. We didn't actually notice it before, so we're going to go in and create an extra. Now, there's two ways of doing an extra. You want just the left rear door, or you actually want to have strip and assemble, painting, and maybe there is labor actually involved with the left front door because you're wanting to repair just the left front door or whatever it actually is. So that is what this multi actually is all about. If you clicked on create an extra, it allows you just to do one line as an extra. So you would type in here your left rear door and put in the price. If it was you were doing a repair on the left rear door and you now put in your price of 1,200 Rand, it just does the panel beating for that left rear door. So that is the one way of actually doing it. So I'm just going to cancel that. The other way is the old multi-select. You click on that first, and now you say create an extra. It now comes up with more items. Right, so we first want our strip and assemble for our left rear door, but I want my strip and assemble to be 500. Right, there is a repairs your left rear door. I also want to paint the left rear door and 1,600 and all my parts that I'm talking about is my left rear door. Right. Is it urgent and to be given to the workshop immediately? In our case, no, it's not, but it does require external authorization. Also, it wants to know why are you asking for this extra? 90% of the time it is unseen damage, but you could actually be asking it for different reasons, or you can actually write in your own reason as to what you want it to be. Right. There are two types of authorization. So internal is your company. You have said that yes, you will actually authorize that extra, and then external is either the insurance company, the customer himself has said that he will actually pay for it. Right, so it has now come back up onto my screen, and there are all my extras that I've actually asked for. The original left rear door, my strip and assemble, my repairing of it, and my painting. Right, so I'm now wanting to get these authorized. So I can say authorize the extra. Right, internally, it has internally authorized it for me because my tick box did that for me automatically. But I'm now wanting to send these as progress reports. So I can now click on send as a progress report, and it will now make those lines for us. Because I actually have more than one line at a time, I can actually do a progress report. Sorry, let's just cancel and go to where we can do your authorization, your progress report as more than one at a time. Right, there are all my extras. Right, so it's brought up all of our extras. I can now say print as a progress report. You can actually even add photos to this report if you wanted to. If you've taken photos, you can go and add the photo onto it just by clicking on the photo. It's a standard photo. It's under my standards. I'm just going to use my one. Right, so I just choose the one that I want. and I want to, so you then select the ticked photos, right? And I can now, when I print my progress report, it now has the picture and things actually on it as well. So obviously my photos, I can select more than one at a time. You can put as many photos on as you want, but it now has made the authorization for the assessor to actually sign it all off, put in all of his details. He's got everything he needs with the photos actually attached. You can make it into a PDF and email it straight from the Dr. Smash program. Right. When the assessor now actually comes back in and he actually either authorizes it or rejects it for you, you come back to your spare summary, you highlight the part, we go to our authorize extra, and then literally we are going to go through and either authorize or disallow. So you click whichever button it is that they have actually said. If they're authorizing it, it puts in their details as to who they actually are and the date and time that you've clicked on it and who you actually are that clicked on it. Right, paperwork is now completed. Our progress report was sent. So this job is actually now, this extra is now being sorted out and it's automatically said we can now order the part because it is a replaced part. So let's save our extra. Right, our strip and assemble, we do the same, we authorize the extra. And I'm going to say he disallowed that one. So you get the idea as to how you can do your authorizations and things like that. We do have under stores, we have this one here, extras, external authorization. If I click on that, that will now come up with a list of every single extra that is requiring authorization from all of your jobs that you actually have. So that if you have one person in your company who is responsible for extras, getting that authorization in, you can now, they can look up their list here. You have your quota on here so that you can see, okay, Cedric wants to see all of his ones. So you put it into quota order and all of Cedric's extras will actually come up onto the list in one place so that he can now see what is actually going on. It's just a nice, easy, quick, simple way of looking at it. But when you do the extras, there is your view the extra button. It's exactly the same as what we did before. Right, sorry, Cedric will be at the top of the list. Okay, not quite, but yeah. So you can now see how everybody's actually on the system, right? And any one of those, of course, I would choose somebody that's halfway down. Edit view the extra, and it's the same screen as what I showed you just now. So you can go in and externally authorizing. So as bosses, it is a good idea for you to be able to come into this screen and keep it as short as possible. At the moment, I have 830 extras that have not been authorized. It should be kept as short as possible. So as a boss, this is a good screen for you to come and have a look at and see what is actually going on with your extras. Right, closing that back down. So I'm back at my authorization screen. So I'm now going to order my left rear door. And I create an order. Right. I'm going to, sorry, no, I double clicked and I shouldn't. Let's just throw it back up to the top here. Right, so I'm replacing my left rear door, but when I phone my supplier says, you know, I don't actually have a complete left rear door. I only have the door lock, and you find another supplier and they have the door window, and somebody else has the door shelf. So you now need to change this one line into 3 lines. And to do that, you highlight it at the top when it's in the top block, and that's when you do split item. Michael, sorry, we do need to be able to split it if it is an extra. So please, can we sort that out?
Okay, I'll take a note of that.
Right. Right. Okay. I'll do it on my front wheel alignment just to show you. Right. It will now come up on front wheel alignment. Bad example because it's going to confuse people when I'm doing this training session. But this is how you would do it. You'd now say, add a split item, and you want, it should be, in our case, it would have been the left rear door lock. And you would now say, okay, save the split item. It will now actually make a second line called left rear door lock. And you can then add on your left rear door glass, and you can use the original line for your shell if you needed to. So and what it does is it actually adds all those separate lines. It adds all those separate lines actually on to your order so that you can now order it from different places. Right, you see how it has given it the same item number as what the original part actually was. Yeah, so that is how you do your split parts. Right, set to not required is we actually don't want this door lock. And I'm going to say set to not required. I just highlight it, set it to not required. It disappears off of my order to say that I don't actually want that door lock coming up. So if I go on to here now, my left rear door lock is actually on the system. It is a split item, but it is in white because it is no longer required. If I change my mind and decide I am going to actually buy that door lock, you have your button here, reinstate part. You highlight it, reinstate the part, and it now puts it back into red for you to order it. You can also, from this screen, you can also say not required, and it puts it back into white to say that it is a not required part. All right, so that is your extras and your ordering of your parts. After all of this, I have actually forgotten where I ordered my bonnet from. And so somebody comes to me and says, where did you actually order your bonnet? I highlight my bonnet and I go to part and order history. I click on that and it will now tell me I ordered it on that job number, order number from Harmon. The employee I spoke to was Sean. I ordered it at 10:42 on the 15th of the 4th. So everything I need to know about that order, and here are all the parts that were actually on that order, all come up at the bottom here. As we go through the scenarios and we start receiving, the computer will automatically say who received it and when they received it and what your invoice details were and the prices of things, and also what prices you actually received those parts at. All come up. So everything gets written onto the screen. It becomes almost a copy of what your invoice, the physical invoice actually is. So you should never need the physical invoice again because you have it all here as to what is actually going on. When we do our RFC, we will come back and show you at the end as well, but you'll even have all RFCs that pertain to this invoice actually coming up onto the system here, and you can view your RFCs and things like that as well. So this will be your invoice, so your invoice can get filed away and nobody should need it again, except for your creditors reconciliation, which we come to at a later stage. Right, okay, so I've ordered it from Harman. Right, so now Harman have finally sent us these items. So let's close our job because we've actually finished ordering and all the rest of it. So our storeman will now go into stores, receiving of the ordered parts. Mine is actually set up that my storeman and my creditors is actually done simultaneously. Yeah, so that's what's actually happening here now at the moment. This is a list of all of my orders that I'm actually busy doing. If I type in my H for Harman, it will then find my Harman, because Harman has actually now walked in the door. So I need to find the Harman order. I can check my invoice number, I can check my order number and all the rest of it. I can double click on it and it will now open up that order for us. These are the 4 items that we actually placed an order for. If all 4 items were actually sent to us, we just need to click on the all button. If only 3 of these 4 items were actually sent, then you drag down the items that you did actually receive. Right. One of the things is you will physically have an invoice from Harman in front of you. And on the invoice, it will actually have a net amount and a VAT amount. And that is where this actually comes in at the bottom here. What does their invoice actually say? So you would change that to exactly what their invoice actually says. At this point, because I'm training, I actually don't know. So I will come back and change that at a later stage at the end of it. But you normally would do that first because it's the first thing that you get given is a copy of their invoice. You write in what do they say I should be balancing to. And then you go through the individual items and you drag down what they have actually given you. They've given you a bonnet and you now double check and you say, right, yes, on the invoice, they have given me a bonnet and my amount that they have charged me for the bonnet is for 4,480. I'm quite happy with that. My left front door, there's no way that you can get a left front door for 100 Rand. So we double click on it and it is actually supposed to have been 1,500 Rand. Right. Your received VAT, your VAT that actually comes through. Right. And then your retail price all comes through for you. If you're wanting to, you can put in part numbers. That's up to you. The facility, it is one of your tick boxes that you have in your defaults as to whether you want to use part numbers throughout the system. Right. We also have allocations on the side here. This particular item is a spare, but if it wasn't actually a spare, you can go and choose if it was a tow-in for your paint shop or whatever it actually is. You can choose what your allocation is that you wanted to go against in your creditors, so that each line of every invoice is actually can be allocated against its department. So this one is a spare. We know that under our supplier, Harman, we put in that he is an OEM supplier, so therefore it will come up and say that he does spares, and that's where it will change. If for some reason on one particular line item it is not a spare, you can come into here and actually change it. We do have other, because these are set by Dr. Smash, these invoice allocations here. But you have this other one, which is your user allocation. You can actually break up your list that you want. You can go to your lookup, add on as many descriptions as you want, and it is for your allocation. So if you're wanting to break down your spares into more specific, I want to know how many bumpers I bought, how many bonnets I've actually bought, you can use this user department listing to actually break it down even further. So that's what this user department is actually all about as well. Right, okay, so let's save our details. So we've got those two, and our bonnet catch came in cheaper than what we thought. So we're going to double click on it, and it came in at 2,500, and we say, okay, save those details. Right, so at this point, we have bought these 3 items. Our invoice is actually saying that it should be 8,480 Rand. Now I know that because I have put in my own figures. The computer has worked it out for me at the top here. So I know that that's what my invoice should physically have read. So yes, I am doing it at the wrong order. That invoice net should have been at the beginning, but I didn't physically have an invoice in front of me, so I did it at the end. Right. Other things that we actually have is received in part, received in surplus, and received without order. Is if you had ordered 10 clips, and at the top here you have a line that says 10 clips, but they only sent you 5 clips. You would highlight your clips and say received item in part, and then it will ask you how many did you receive, and you now type in 5, and it will break that one line into 2 parts. One will be the 5 that you can drag down to the bottom here to say you received it, and then the other one at the top here will now stay there because you have not received it as yet. The opposite of that is you received it in surplus, which means that you ordered 10, but they sent you 20. It allows you to add and say you received the other 10 in surplus. So it will make 2 lines down at the bottom here, one with your original 10, and it will actually add on 10 extras and the 10 extra clips actually onto the bottom, and it will add it on as a extra onto this job. Exactly the same with the received without order. If you placed an order and then they suddenly sent a thank you, received part, and I'm just going to say extra, and I say okay, save changes. Right. Okay, so there's my received part. I double click on it. They have charged me 20 Rand for this extra part, whatever it happens to be. And I now say okay. So of course, that's now going to change to 8,500. Right. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get my received net, which is adding up all of these figures here, to actually balance back to what my invoice net actually says. When those two do balance, my receive adjusted order becomes available. Right, but before I actually click on that button, this front bumper, what's going to happen to this front bumper now? We ordered it, but Harman haven't actually sent it to us as yet. Why haven't they sent it to us? Is it that it's coming through on a different invoice number, or does Harman not actually have one in stock and we have to reorder it from a completely different supplier. And that is where this tick box here comes into account. There's a write-up about it, telling you what's going on so that you can remember which way around it actually is. But reorder the part. Reorder means I want that front bumper to be thrown back to my job. It will be in red so that I can reorder it again from a completely new supplier. If I leave it unticked, it means that I am not reordering the part. Harman is still sending it, but it will be on a different invoice number. Right, so I am going to leave it that it is Harman is going to be sending it, but on a separate invoice number. Right, so I can receive your adjusted order. Those are the parts that I've actually have received. What date is written on the actual physical invoice itself, and what is the invoice number. Right, if you're wanting to change the date, you can either highlight and just type in 14, and when you press your enter key, it knows that you mean the 14th of April. And if you wanted it to be the 30th of March, you would then type in 33 because you want to change the month, and it writes up your date like that for you. Any dates throughout Dr. Smash, that is the procedure. If you only write in the day, it will assume that you mean the month that you are in at the moment, and it will assume the year that you are in. Right, okay. We have the facility. At the moment, it is allocated to Harman, but if I need to, because this is actually not coming from Harman, I can go and change the supplier to who it has actually come from. So it does allow me to actually correct information if I needed to. But I'm happy with everything. I'm going to receive my adjusted order. Right. If I now go back, you will see that our Harman is actually still on this list. There it is there. And it's now coming up. If I say receive it, it will now be just my front bumper that is now sitting there waiting. If for some reason this front bumper is actually ex-factory and will be coming at a much later stage, what I can do is I highlight my Harman, and that is where this actually now comes in. So I highlight Harman and I say set it to ex-factory. I click on it. It is ex-factory, and when do I expect it to actually arrive? I expect it to arrive on the 22nd, and I can save the ex-factory status. So that allows you to be able to see very quickly what is actually going on with your orders. You'll see how it is now turned my job number yellow, because if the job number is in yellow, it means that it is an ex-factory part. Another thing, as a boss, this is a very good screen to actually keep as empty as possible, because this should only be a list of orders that you are still waiting for the parts to actually arrive. If they are still on this list, they should be set as ex-factory, so that you'll be able to see quite quickly that they are ex-factory and that everything else is actually got a date that is in the last day or two. You can put it into order date order and make sure that your storeman is actually keeping up with these orders and the parts are actually coming in as they should be. Right, so that is the receiving of the actual data. So what has it done to my job card now? So I go back to my job, my view all current jobs. Yes, I can go this way, but we now have the facility of going to the car, and that will show you all your jobs that you actually have on the system, all your open jobs. Only your open jobs come up. So it's a shortcut is going to the car. Right, so we go to our Borman. right? My space summary, right? There is my items that I have done. I have received them and processed, but my received extra part, it's come up and it says I need to actually authorize this extra. I either go, I do require this part, your supplier was quite right, I do actually need it. You then go through, you would then authorize the extra, send it off as a progress report and get the assessor to actually authorize it. Or you say, no, I don't actually need it. I am going to be sending it back to the supplier as an RFC. Right, our front bumper, you will see that our item is yellow and our item number is in yellow, means that it is ex-factory. It's been ordered, not yet received, but at this point, it is actually also ex-factory, so that you can see quite quickly what is actually going on with that part. Right. There is two ways of RFCing. I can highlight this part that I want to RFC, and I can click on RFC selected item. But most of the time, your storeman actually doesn't know. All he knows is he's received this extra part. He knows an invoice number for it, and that's all he actually knows about it, because he knows that it was on this job. So I'm not going to do it through here, but I will show you the screen that comes up. Right, so that is the screen that actually comes up. You see it already knows the invoice number that we had actually put in. Right, so let's just cancel that. I'm now going to close this all back down again. So your storeman will be going into return for credits, also an RFC, as in our return for completion. These are all of the RFCs that he is actually asked for this month. Our computer is going through in RFC number order because we have not got multiple books actually selected in our default. So I want to add on a new RFC. Who is our supplier for? There's our Harmon, and there is our invoice that we have actually just done. Right. If it was an invoice from more than 90 days ago, that is what this show all invoices is actually all about, because the computer is actually only bringing up invoices for the last 90 days. Right. That is actually set in your default that you want to see for 90 days, and then show all invoices will then bring through every single invoice. But normally after 90 days, your suppliers are not keen on you actually sending it back anyway. So yeah, that's why we've actually done it this way. So we've highlighted our invoice and we say select the invoice. Right, same screen as what we saw just now. The only difference between the two was we had to go and choose that it was the Harmon invoice, whereas if we did it through the job card, it knew that it was the Harmon invoice that we were actually doing. Right, our date, we go in, we add our RFC item. There are the items that we have actually purchased on this invoice. So which part is it that we're actually going to be sending back? We want the received, and we drag it down to the bottom here. It fills in the information for us. Why are you sending it back? Well, it was incorrectly supplied, or whatever reason you actually want. You can choose any one of these. You can write in your own reason if you want as well, actually on here as well, on the system. Right. We do have the facility, although I don't always like to actually use it, of creating an RFC line. It should be, you should actually have those items actually on here. If you have been ordering correctly through the Dr. Smash system, you should not need to use this create an RFC line. This RFC line is for you wanting to actually RFC something that is actually not on this list. People have actually asked us to put it in, but for me, it can cause a problem. So I prefer people not to actually use it, but the facility is there if you are not ordering properly through the Dr. Smash system, you're doing it manually or whatever it is, we have put that facility in. You have also got your part number. It would have come up automatically if when we did our receiving, we actually put in our part numbers. All of that would actually come up for you. So we're now wanting to save our RFC line. Right. Our control line is the computer assumes that we are returning the whole invoice. So your control line should actually be your manual RFC book. What is the total of your RFC in your manual RFC book? And in our case, it is actually only 20 Rand. So everything now balances. We've got no differences coming through. So we are able to go in and post and commit. Right, before I click on my post and commit, if we were RFCing every single part on that invoice, if there was, in our case, we only did the one part, but we now want a second part actually on it, you need to go back to your add RFC line, drag down the second part and save the RFC line, and it will now bring that second part actually onto the list. If you were RFCing the entire invoice, that is what this RFC, the whole invoice, it pulls down all 4 items in our case and puts them in as being RFC'd. Just so it tries to help you save time as to what is actually going on. Right, we have got a user number at the top here. That is set in our default, so we want a user number to actually come up. And it literally is a blank spot for you to write what you want to write in it. You can say that it was Joe, as in you saying that Joe was the person who actually made the RFC, or Joe was the driver that actually collected, or whatever you want to actually use that user number for. A lot of people, when they get the credit note, like to come back into this RFC, and I will show you how it is actually done. Come back into this RFC and change the user number to the credit note number. So that is what some people actually use that user number actually for. Right, so I'm going to post and commit. Right, so our RFC has actually now been made. I have posted it. I'm happy with it. And now what I wanted to actually do for me is these things with an RFC is if it has already been made, that's fine. You have made the RFC, but has your supplier actually collected it? And that is where this comes in here, is if you go along your line, you'll see posted, yes, I have posted that RFC, so I have made it, I'm quite happy. Collected, no, my supplier has not collected that RFC as yet. We have reports where you see Harmon coming. You can actually go into Dr. Smash quickly, find out your for Harmon, your creditor reports. You go to your RFCs, and you'll now be able to write not collected for a supplier. You'll then be able to find out all your RFCs that have not been collected for Harmon, and then make sure that when Harmon walks out the door, all of them have actually now been, he has taken all the RFCs with him. So once he has now taken it and he has collected it, you want to set the RFC to collect it. Just click on that and it just changes that to yes. Right, credited, you cannot change credited at all. Credited is only changed when you are doing your creditors reconciliation and you actually state in your creditors reconciliation that you have received the credit note for this particular RFC and you have received the credit on your statement, and which then says credited, yes, I have been credited for this particular one as yet. Right. So that is RFCs. Right. Consumables. Right. So consumables is I love my consumables section. Here again, we have two different ways of actually doing consumables. As Rolling Wheels has actually just asked, some people like to actually have a storeman that requests items, and if it's requested, and then the buyer will actually buy, or you can do it that the buyer buys straight away, or the storeman buys straight away without requesting his items first. So in the consumable side as well, we have both ways of actually doing it. Right, my defaults are actually set that there is no requesting to be done, but as Rolling Wheels is actually asking for requests, I'm going to go and change my default. Right. Right, okay, so now if I go into my stores order consumables. Right, with consumables, the data that I have got on here at this point in time is not very intuitive. The descriptions are 2K watt. To me, that should be the way I personally would have actually written it up, and the way I would suggest that you do is you actually write in the word paint 2K watt. The reason for that is when you go in to your Dr. Smash, it automatically puts it in description order. So you see how my paint is actually now coming up with all my painting stuff together. So all my different colored paints would actually now come together as paint white, paint black. And so it just makes it a little bit easier for you to be able to find what is actually going on with that particular item. Right, going back into that 2K white, our description, what do we call it? Our supplier's description or supplier's code is what does the supplier call it? You write in whatever it is that the supplier calls it. What department actually uses this part? Dropbox, you have all of your different departments that you can use. And then how do you buy 2K white? Each is not a very informative. You either buy 1 liter, 2 liter, 5 liter, 25 liter. How do you actually buy it? Each to me would be a spark plug because you can only get a spark plug in one particular format. So 2K white, let's say you do 5 liters. Right, in your 5 liter container that you have now purchased, that we have selected here, how many individual items are in a 5 liter? When you give out 2K white to your paint booth, your paint prep department, how do you issue it out to them? Do you give them a whole 5 liter paint, or do you give them 250 mils at a time, or a half liter at a time, or how is it that you give it to them when they come and ask you for paint white. If it was 250 mils, 250 mils means that in a 1 liter you have 4, which means in a 5 liter you actually have 20 opportunities of issuing out 2K white paint. So you would then put in here 20. Because there are 20 250 mil facilities that you have. How much is 2K white paint for 5 liters? 900 Rand. Right. Who do you prefer to buy your paint from? We go to our lookup, we find our paint company that we use, whoever it might be, and just because we have put in a supplier does not mean that we have to buy from that person and that person only. It is a suggestion as to who we like to actually buy from. Right, description 2. Any other details you're wanting to write about this 2K white, that is totally up to you. It's just another place for you to write it. Shelf and bin number. If your storeroom is designed properly, set up, you each one of your shelves will be numbered, and then you will have bins actually on those shelves. You can then write, well, 2K white paint is actually found on shelf 15 under bin 20. So you can actually then write up where it actually is. So that whoever comes in now looking for 2K white now knows where to go and find that paint type for you. Right, minimum, maximum stock levels at the beginning of the month and at the end of the month. How much do you actually want in stock? That is totally up to you. And then how do we issue it out? Well, we do issue it out as each, or you can actually say, we have a facility of writing 250 mils. Right. So you can write in your own way how many items, which is how many of those 20 do we have in stock at this point. So if I write in 14, I am saying I have 14 250 mils actually available to actually issue out at this point in time. So remember that when you're doing your minimum and maximum stock levels at the top here, you are talking about your 250 mils. You are not talking about your 5 liter container. Right. So what the computer has now done is 5 liters has 20 items actually in it at 900 Rand. So therefore, one 250 mils actually costs you 45 Rand. Right. All of this information that we are doing here is when you issue out your consumables, is when a staff member comes and asks you for 2K white paint and you issue it against a job card, it will now take this figure and put it against your costing on your job card. So that is why it is actually quite important, if you can, to put in these details onto the system, so that when you say you've issued, you are issuing the correct quantities and the correct units at the same time. Right, so that is how you actually add on your consumables onto this listing. If for some reason you no longer use 2K white paint, you can use this one, do not show on listing, and it will actually now stop showing on the system onto this list at the back here. Right. Okay, so that is how you add your consumables onto this list. See how it tells me I have 14 actually in stock at this point in time. And it also tells me what shelf and bin number, where to actually find it, and who my supplier is. So I've got all my information that I require actually on here. At this stage, I am running low on my items and I now want to do a request. I just highlight and I say item order request. How many do I actually want? I want 2, and in this case, number of items to be ordered will be 2 5-liter containers, because we are ordering, so we are now talking about the 5 liters. We are not issuing, so we are not talking about the 250 mils. Right, so save the items required. It is now put in a request for our paint 2K white. And so if there's anything else, let's highlight this one and we say item order request, and we now want 5 of those ones. It just keeps going through and puts in that we have actually requested these items. Right, so where does this request actually go? So under our stores, we want to do our purchasing. We can either purchase for a job. If your storeman actually does your own ordering, he can actually come in here and purchase for a job, and it will show him a list of all the jobs that need parts to be bought for it. Or he can actually now come to your consumables, clicks on consumables, and it would now bring through those 2 items that are required, and they can decide if they're going to be placing an order for it or not. And very similar to the ordering that we just did, you drag it down to the bottom block, the items that you do require, and you click on make order. Similar again, you change your supplier to whoever it is that you're doing. You go to your staff, you choose your staff, and if you're wanting to, you can actually change the amounts that are actually required. You highlight, and at the bottom you can say, right, okay, you're not getting 5, I'm only going to be doing 3. Press your enter, and it will now change your figures for 3 to actually come through. Right, so you can now print your order, make it as you want. You want to print it with net values, no values, or do not print. I'm going to say do not print, but because you've all seen what an order actually looks like, and you commit the order. Right, it's everyday while I'm thinking about it. Right, and so now, if I go back to my the screen is now empty. I've got nothing more that I can actually order, so I'm going to close that down. Let's actually refresh this listing, and these should now change from requested to ordered. If your storeman now wants to decide, okay, where did they actually order this from and who is it actually coming from, that type of thing, you have got view the order, and they can actually look at the physical order, very much the same sort of screen as what we had for our spares purchasing. So all of that is now there, where you've got your date and time and who we ordered it from and what employee, the whole lot is actually all there. Right. Okay, so we have now ordered it. Whenever they actually send the items, very, very similar, exactly the same as what we did with our parts. Receiving the ordered parts. We find our EBITDA on that received ordered parts. There it is at the top. We double click on it. Exactly the same screen as what you saw before. What parts actually did arrive? What is your invoice net? So what prices did you actually charge for it? I'm actually going to change my 2K white, because remember it was 900 Rand. I'm actually going to now say that it is, I'm going to make it 2,000 Rand. Okay. Save. Oh, see, I put in This would have been a perfect opportunity. Its invoice is not for spares, it is actually for my paint shop. Okay, right, same with my mixing, I'm happy with that. So my price is 5375. So Aberdeen is obviously not been set up as a paint supplier. So that's why it comes up with spares, but you would have actually have set up your suppliers correctly, so it does not come up as spares, but would have come up as paint anyway. Right, so everything balances, we say received, adjusted order, exactly the same procedure as what we have just done. You've seen all of this. So we have now received those particular items. Right, our painting 2K, we actually asked for 2. Right, so let's close this down, refresh this listing because we haven't actually closed it. And you see how my PK white has now shot up to 54 because I have 20. If there were 14, I ordered 2, so that made it 40, so plus the 14 made it 54. So it automatically is increasing the number of 250 mils issuable items that we actually have on our paint. If I go into my paint now, my net price has actually changed to 1,000 Rand because it always takes what your latest price actually is. So as things are getting more expensive and you're buying it, Dr. Smash is actually keeping up with it so that when you issue, it is actually issuing at the latest prices. Right, so that is how you would order and do your receiving. Well, first you would request, you order, and then you do your receiving. If my tick box had been that I did not want to do a request first, let's go in just so that you can see both ways of actually doing it. Stores, and I'm saying direct order, no request. Save. Around query order consumables, exactly the same screen as what we had before. If I go down to my paint, nice to actually use the same one. Anyway, there it is, fine. Right, I'm now wanting to order this paint. I can now do a right click on it. So you highlight and you do a right click and it allows you to select it. So it comes green. You want paint removal. So you click on paint removal and then you do a right click on your keyboard, on your mouse, and it turns it green. So you go through all the items that you're actually wanting to place orders for, highlight, and then a right click. And what will happen now is it comes up and you say order the selected items, and it goes straight into our order, and we can now go in and change our quantities to what we actually want our quantities to be. So that is how you would bypass the requesting, is by ticking that direct order, not request, and then your storeman can actually make his own orders straight away from the Dr. Smash package. I'm not going to go through all of this because we have seen it already. Right, so that is how you would do your ordering. But now let's have a look at Paint 2K White. I can go in and I can view my items purchase history. And this will now come up and it will tell me every single time I have purchased 2K White. It tells me what date, how many packs, what the value was. So that there were 40 items that I could actually issue out at the time individually. Everything is now there. If I wanted to, you can either go in and view the order. So what the nice thing is that you can check to see at any stage how much your guys are actually using. You can say, hang on a moment, but I'm sure I ordered 2K white last week. You come into here, you can check it and you can see if you did, because it keeps a history of everything that you have actually done. Right, we have also got a department usage. Our paint 2K white is paint prep. Right, and the department usage, at the moment, we're talking about our paint, which is in paint prep. So if we go to our department usage, it will now shows you all the different departments that you have. We were looking at our paint prep. So far this month, we have spent that amount of money for our paint prep side of things. If I go to my Dropbox, it then goes through and tells me of all the paints that we actually did. And there is our paint 2K that we actually have purchased for that particular item. For that particular month, so you can see it, you can view your orders, so you can drill down deeper and deeper actually into it if you need to. Right, we have also got our issuing and our issuing of our user-defined departments. So let's go and find out how you actually issue to a job and what it does. Right, and we've also got sold consumable invoices made. Is Dr. Smash does allow you to actually, if a client walks in and says, please can I have 250 mils of 2K white paint, and you actually give it to the client, where you can actually sell it to the client if you want. We do have that facility actually in the Dr. Smash program for doing that. And then that button will actually show you all the parts that you have sold to clients. Right, okay, so how do we do all of that issuing and things like that? Right, so stores, then issue out our consumable stock. Right, it's the same list as what we actually had in before. So let's type in our paint, 2K white, there it is there. Right, I'm actually just going to check my adjusted order to just get rid of all my orders because I actually cancelled that order. Right, right, so there's my 2K white. I'm now wanting to issue it out to my to the job card that I'm working on. So I go to my job card. Here's my lookup. Right, one at the bottom of the list should hopefully be my Mark Foreman. I double click on Mark Foreman and I can now say how many 250 mils am I now giving to Mark Foreman's car. I'm going to give him 3. Right. Okay, sometimes this issue is not for a job. That would be things like your hand, you're going to allocate hand cleaner to a specific job because hand cleaner will be used on multiple jobs. So you are now going to issue it to its department instead of to the job card itself. And that's what this tick box is here, is if you don't put in a job number and you tick that, it's now going to use paint prep as the department and it will issue it to that department. You also have a user-defined department. That is what this one is here. You can have your own user-defined departments. And I'm now going to say that I'm going to put it totally different. I'm going to put it into assembly instead of into paint prep. Right. Okay, so I want 3 of my paint. I've done 3 of those of my paint and I add it to the basket. Right, so it now makes it green. What else are they coming to ask for? They want some paint removal. They want 1. And I add to my basket. They want some strainers. So I highlight my strainers. They want 1 strainer and I add to my basket. So what I am doing is everything, it's almost like you're going shopping around your stores. You're putting things into the basket for this one particular job. If you want, you can go in and you can view what is actually in your basket so that you can check, delete, add whatever you need to actually do, right? And then you issue your basket if you are going to put it against the job number. Right, so we're going to now issue those particular items, and you will see that my 54 will now actually decrease to 51 because 3 of the items have now gone against that particular job. Right, so each one of them will actually decrease, and I can actually print out a picking slip. Now, a picking slip is if you want your staff members, they have taken these items, you want them to sign for it. You can print out a picking slip so that they can sign and you now have it on paper that they have actually selected. So I'll just show you what it looks like. So it comes up, it will tell you what job number it actually was. You've got what they've actually taken. Mine says issue to no employee selected because I forgot to actually select it. Right, so you can do your storeman and you can do the employee signature. So that is what your picking slip is actually all about. Where did I forget to do my issuing it out to an employee? Right, if I go to issue basket to an employee and I choose my employee, right, and now I go through and I select what items it actually was. It will actually put all of those items and say, Dwayne actually took them. All right. Okay. If I was going to actually sell items now, okay, so you clicking first that it is to sell, and then you are choosing what it is that you're wanting to sell, right? Adding it to the basket, right? And now you're wanting to invoice it out. And it allows you to actually make an invoice for those items using the prices that are actually coming through and the markup that you have set in your defaults as to what price you actually want to sell it for. If you're not happy with these prices, edit the invoice line and change the price to what you do want to sell it for. All right. Okay. Right, so I'm going to close this down now. You saw my painting 2K turn to 51. If I go back into my jobs, there's my Borman, right? Under my customer care, and I want my job costing overview, right? At the moment, my credit invoice that I've only got that one for Harman, but what I am interested in at this point is view my consumables drawn. There's all my consumables with their prices and all the rest of it, what I was allowed on my consumables and what I have used so far actually on my consumables. So this job costing overview is a great screen for the bosses to actually look at. They can see what purchases have been made. They can see what RFCs have actually been made. They can have a look at all of their extras, what their labors actually are. And then as you're making your invoices, it will come up here. So it will tell you at the end of the day, this is what you should be invoicing it out for, but what are you invoicing it out for? And you can actually now see your profit or loss actually on this job. Right, so this is the overview of the actual job itself. Right, so we have actually finished and more or less did it on time for a change. Our we did assessing, making of a job card today, and then we did the ordering of parts, the receiving of your parts, your extras, your return for completions, and then I have gone through your complete consumables with you. And obviously with consumables as well, just while I think about it, you have actually got your stock take. So at the end of each month, you can go into your consumable stock take, you print out your stock take list, you go through, you add up, or you start counting what is actually in your storeroom, and then you will come back to here and you can now begin the stock take, and it allows you to actually go through in the same order as to what the list is, which is the same order as to what your list is, your printout, and you now write in what your new stock level actually is. It tells you what your old stock level should be according to Dr. Smash, but you are now overwriting it and telling it there's actually only 6. It's saying that there should be 8. So when I go through, you will see that on my spray paint at the background here, it should have been 8. It is 6. So there is a difference of 2. And it tells you what your stock value is now. It's 6 times your 45, which gives you your 270. So you keep going through that, and you get your stock take total value will come up at the bottom as to how much your stock is actually worth. And then you commit your stock take. So that is how you would do your stock take as well for what's going on in your storeroom. Right. It's nice actually having this difference column, because if you suddenly start seeing that you are getting a lot of negatives actually coming through, well, mind you, even positives, is you now need to find out what is happening with my matte black. Who's issuing out without actually telling the computer, so which means that there are jobs that are being done that are not having that money allocated to it, or it means that somebody is actually taking matte black out of your storeroom without your knowledge. So that you're doing your stock take regularly is actually quite important. Right, so when you're finished, you just do commit the stock take, and all of these new stock take figures will now go through onto your consumable listing as to what your new stock level actually is.
Thank you everyone for joining us for this webinar. As you are aware, these videos are posted online, otherwise you wouldn't be seeing them. The 3 places that they are posted is on our YouTube channel, on our website under the notice board, and then on Facebook. If you're wanting to watch any of the later webinars, please just pop onto either one of those resources and they will all be there. YouTube has them under a playlist. The notice board has the separate posts for each subject that is covered in each video. So please just go have a look. Facebook, it'll all just be on our timeline. Thank you very much for joining us today, and we hope to see you soon.